Hello guys, and welcome to this new tutorial. Here is what we are going to be creating. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to go into our preferences and set the frame format to 1920 by 1080 and 25 frames per second, and all of these needs to be a 16-bit float. Save. I'm going to be using these macros, which you will find on Reactor. Okay, let's start with a text 3D node. And let's type subsurface, maybe with a nicer font. Enable the lights, move into the extrusion, and here 0.1 will be fine. In the bevel depth, do something like this. Yeah, I think it's nice. And now what we're gonna do is to actually move this thing up a little bit, maybe 0.4, and yeah, I think this is done. So now we can add a camera, and if we view the merge and right click on here, we can copy the point of view to the camera, and then if we go into the transform tab into the camera node, we can enable the target, get rid of any rotation, and maybe we can view it. We can view the merge in a different viewer, and here view through the camera. So now, in the camera node, we can move the Y position, and maybe let's type 0.4 and the X position like so. Okay, so now what you want to do is to set the composition to 120 frame, and let's move to frame 100, and let's add some keyframe here. Let's move back to frame 0 and do something like this. Yeah, a pretty easy one, and maybe, yeah, something like that. Let's see what we have. Yeah, I think it's nice. Let's move into the spline editor so we can make it a little bit better. Let's view the camera splines and smooth all the curves using Shift S. Let's have a look. I think it's looking good. Let's make it a little bit snappier. Hit Command T to access the ease in and ease out tools, and maybe we can do something like so. Yeah, and yeah, I think it's nice. Okay, so now we want to move back to our text 3D node, and we want to right click on the style text here and add a follower. If we move to the modifier tab, we can go here in the shading tab and move into the position here and move to frame 0 and add a keyframe here to offset Z, maybe type -2, and move around frame 30 and add another keyframe with offset Z value of 0. So now we can go again in our spline editor and again Shift S to smoothen our curve. So now there's one more step. We added a follower, so in the timing tab here we can add a delay. Let's add 2, and as you can see we have this nice effect here. Maybe we can move this keyframe a little bit earlier, like 25. Yeah, something like so. Okay, so now we want to add another merge 3D node. And now we want to add a directional light. Let's rename this one main. Make it a little bit bluish and maybe rotate it some so that we have this kind of rim light here, which is kind of nice. Yeah, something like so. Okay, so now we want to add a point light, and let's call this one red. We of course are going to make it red, pipe it into the merge, and maybe move this one, something like this. And then we want to go into the decay type here and choose quadratic, which is the most physically accurate one. And now what we want to do is to copy this point light and rename this one blue, and of course make this one blue. And we want to move our light in a different position. Yeah, something like that. Okay, let's have a look what we have here. Yeah, nice. And now we want to animate the intensity of our lights so that we start with a fade-in. Let's start with the main light here and go to frame 0, add a keyframe at frame 0 at 0 intensity, move to frame 100 and go around, 0.7, 0.75, let's go 65. And again in the spline editor, maybe now we can choose, by clicking on these 3 dots, we can choose show only selected, and we can go into the main here, main light, and again shift S to smoothen the animation. Let's move to the red light here, and maybe we want to start from here, frame 24, and add a keyframe at 0 intensity, move at frame 65, and again smoothen everything. Let's see what we have. Yeah, nice. Maybe we can move this to frame 23. Okay, and now move to the blue light and start around here, around frame 18. Add a keyframe with 0 value. Again, let's move to frame 66 and go to 1 and smoothen everything. And maybe we can move this one back a little bit, and so choose time offset and minus 10 frames. Let's see what we have. Maybe it's a little bit too much, and again time offset 5. Maybe we can move this 2 frames more. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we want to add a render, and in the render we want to select the OpenGL. In the texturing tab, select source, enable lighting and shadow, and I think we are good as is. Let's have a look at what we have. So now what we have is something like a diffuse and specular pass. So now we need something to fake our subsurface scattering. Okay, let's do that and add an override 3D. And in the override 3D, in the visibility here, select do cull front face and cull front face. And as you can see, this is what happens. And now we want to add 2 merges and add our camera here. And we need to pipe these lights in, but since this would be messy, what I'm gonna do is to add a wireless 3D node and reference my red light and my main light and my blue light. And now we just copy and paste our render. And as you can see, we have a very different result. Maybe we have to tweak the main light a little bit. Let's have a look at this one in this other view. Yeah, I think this looks perfect. And okay, now since we are going to use these 2 render as passes, we have to alpha divide both of those render, and let's rename this render, and this one will be our diffuse, and the other one will be the subsurface scattering. Okay, so here what we want to do is to add a clean plate node and pipe the render in both the background, and this one is the garbage matte. Now let's move into the garbage matte here and click invert, view the clean plate, and all we have to do is to grow the edges. And now we have to add a blur node. Let's leave it as is, and now we just need to merge this one on top of our previous render. Now we need to perform an add operation, and we do that by decreasing the alpha gain to 0. Okay, so this looks a little bit messy now, but bear with me for a moment. We want to add a matte control, and we want to use our diffuse as an alpha. So we pipe it into the foreground. Let's add a couple of pipe routers here. And in the matte control, combine alpha and post multiply image, and this is our result. Again, this doesn't look good at all, but watch what happens when we blur our subsurface render here. And then there is one more thing that we are missing, which is a light wrap. Let's pipe again the diffuse here, and as you can see, we have our light wrap. Let's pipe the light wrap into the mask input of the merge, and if we play a little bit with the light wrap, you can see we have a very nice result. So let me show you something cool. If we move, if we play with the lights, as you can see, it's very interactive. It actually behaves like a real subsurface scattering would behave. Okay, so what we want to do now is to actually add another render, and this time we need again a OpenGL render, and we don't need lighting and shadows. We need texturing to be source, and we want to output the Z and normal passes, and we want to make this one very big. So let's make 1920 times 3 and 1080 times 3. So now we need to add an ambient occlusion node, and we also need the camera in order to the ambient occlusion to work. So grab a copy of the camera and paste an instance. Now let's have a look at our ambient occlusion here. We want to make it a sphere. Let's increase the number of samples and reduce the kernel radius. Yeah, something like that, and maybe, yeah, I think that's good enough. As you can see, since we are working with a technical pass, there is no anti-aliasing, and what we want to do is to add another clean plate node and pipe both the background and the garbage matte, move into the garbage matte, invert it and grow the edges. Yeah, something like that, maybe just a little bit less. And now we want to add a resize node, and in the resize node we want to select the Gaussian filter method. And now what we want to do is just to merge this one on top of our previous render, and we want to multiply it. So this is what we end up with, which is really nice in my opinion. Okay, so let's move on and let's grab this texture here. And since we have this copy of the camera, let's make it visible with the tile picture. And we would need also these lights here. Maybe we can grab this one and pass 3 instances, and we can create a merge 3D node and also add the camera here in the equation. And we want to create a shape 3D node. Let's view this. And maybe we don't need the actual main light here, we want just our blue. Let's rename this one. Let's main red copy, and this other one blue copy. Okay, so what we want to do now is go into the shape and rotate the X minus 90 degree and make it 15 in scale, and maybe, yeah, something like that. I think it's nice. I think we need to add a blend shader here, and we want to add another render, and we can grab a copy of the diffuse here and maybe call this one floor lights, and let's have a look at it. Okay, I think we can move into the blend here, and we can change the into something like that. I think it's nice. Specular will change the, but I think such result is good enough. And then we have this this texture here. As you can see, we have some logo that we don't want, and let's add a crop node. If we select the crop node, there is this command here, and if we click and drag, we have a crop as we need. So now we can add a transform node, and we want the edges set to mirror, and let's make it a little bit smaller. And now we want the shape 3D to have replace material 3D. And we can pipe this one directly, and maybe we can add another merge 3D and pipe the camera again, copy this render and call this one texture. sorry, in the render we have to disable the lighting. Okay, so now we have this light pass and this texture pass. So what we want to do now is to add here, to the floor lights, we want to add a variable and pipe the texture and in the foreground of the variable, and we want to set the blur size to 40 and the quality to like 2. Yeah, maybe stick it with multi-box here. And now we just need to merge this one on top, and maybe we can just add this one. Okay, so I think we can blend this a little bit, something like that. Yeah, I think it's nice. Let's have a look. Okay, as you can see, we have a pretty nice result already. So what I'm gonna do now is to add a couple of nice effects. The first thing that we want to do is to add a channel booleans and set the alpha to white. So now we want to add the fast chroma and view the fast chroma and just a touch of chromatic aberration, as you can see. Not that much. Maybe it's already too much. Let's see if, yeah, something like so. I like it. Okay, now what we want to add a fast expo glow. Yeah, I think this is nice. And then we can add a film grain. I'm using this macro, which I haven't released yet. It's based on the film grain in Fusion. There's also this Luma mix that I added, and then we can decrease the strength and the size. Yeah, something like that. And what we want to add, maybe we could add also a Twitch macro, which is a macro that I created to generate some camera shake and other stuff. And let's add some keyframing in the amplitude here and go to the frame 100, and this one is 0 and this one goes like so. And again, remember to smoothen everything out. And maybe I could add some motion blur, and you could do that by enabling it into the render. But since I've added this twitch, this camera shake, I'm going to use a plugin, which is the Real Smart Motion Blur, which works very nicely inside of Fusion. And let's have a render here and see what we have. Just one more thing, maybe. Color correction. Let's have a look at what we have here. You can use this technique actually in whatever situation you're on. I tested this one with a more complex model, and as you can see, it works really nicely. So, guys, I think this is a wrap for me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you liked this one. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done so. And thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.